For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings so we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
You don't know the power of the dark side.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Bad feeling about this.
Welcome to episode 243 of Blue Harvest. I'm your host, Hawes Burkhart.
And I'm your host, Will Witten.
And we are safe in our podcasting bunkers. Hands washed, not touching our face and shit.
I have the 50-gallon drum pump action Purell over here right next to me.
Buddy, let me tell you what the last 2 days have consisted of for me. Okay? Because you know, I'm an anxious dude.
Oh, yeah, you are.
And I have a pretty intense fear of death. But the last 2 days, I have been having to focus and remain as calm as possible. Because if I lose my shit, that means there's 2 people in the house losing their shit. And that's just chaos. So,
dude, my mom, every time I
goodness.
talk to her, she's like, you be careful. You be really careful, and
dude,
you wash your hands, and you don't touch your face. And I was like, got it, Mom. I got it.
Well, so the other thing is like, Jesse's grandma just got out of the hospital for pneumonia.
Yeah.
Elderly lady. Right. My grandmother, currently going through treatment for lung cancer.
Also at risk.
My mom has COPD.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I'm just hoping neither of our families get hit by this nonsense. And I would like to say that I don't feel like the anxiety is unjustified. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying one of us has to be like, hey, maybe get off your phone for a little bit. Because today I was in the bathroom and Jessie, she was like, oh, looks like there might be somebody at Jefferson State that has it. Oh, no. This and this is going on. Oh no, but like just spitting out news stories.
Yeah.
And I know for me, that only ramps up my anxiety. I mean, you have to do your civic, like your personal duty and keep up to date. But like I know I'll fall down a hole and just read and get anxious and anxious and anxious.
Well, this may sound incredibly nihilistic, but it's time. Like it's, speaking worldwide, it's time for a pandemic or a large war. Like things have been going really well for a while, and these things happen. You know what I mean? Like they happen throughout time.
Yeah,
and
but that doesn't help ease the fact that things like this happen doesn't ease the fear of, oh, I'm gonna die.
But what should is that you're living in the most advanced medical age that humanity has ever been in when one of these pandemic things happen. That should bring you a little safety to mind.
My personal nagging anxiety that's going on right now is, like, let's say everything shuts down for a couple of weeks. Dude, that's going to be a financial hit as far as mine and Jesse's jobs are concerned,
Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
So it's just, But
I don't think you're looking at that. Right now, the only really canceled things are maybe some schools.
Disneyland, Disney World.
Events, places where people gather, concerts.
Right.
I got tickets for the Monster Jam. A kid likes monster trucks. Had them
No.
for tomorrow. And Mississippi's like, oh, we're worried about the coronavirus. I think we got one case. Better shut down everything in here.
Well, I can see where you're coming from there, but I also can see like better safe than sorry.
I get it. Better
Yeah.
safe than sorry. I get it. My kid will see monster trucks eventually. But
Yeah, I mean, trust me. Monster
not
Jam,
that important.
it kind of just circles Mississippi and Alabama.
But there's...
Oh, no.
Oh, no. It's starting.
Um,
The other thing is, this may be a yearly thing. There may be coronavirus season. Like, it'll be along with flu season. Like, if there's, not an effective vaccine, or if it still hits just like the flu, even if you do have the vaccine, it just hits less hard. I mean, this may be something that, we deal with forever.
well, thank you. Secondly, so today, Jesse and I were just sort of talking about, like, we should do our duty and, like, what do they call it? Not self-quarantine, but, like, practice social distancing.
Self-isolation.
Social distancing,
Yeah.
Maybe we
No
don't
more
go out to...
handshakes.
Yeah, well, obviously. Dude, since it really first kicked up, we've been on the hand sanitizer, super vigilant 30-second hand washes train.
Oh, you can't get it here. Like, hand sanitizer is sold out in every store in Tupelo.
Right.
And if you want it, you got to be at the grocery store like the first hour after.
Right. So, today I was like, she was like, well, do you think I need to go like food shopping? Do I need to stock us up on stuff? And I looked at her and I go, do you think it'll make you feel less anxious if you do that? And she's like, I really think it will. So she went and
If
did
you're
some
gonna do
shopping.
that-
We didn't do the crazy go buy 400 rolls of toilet paper thing.
No,
We just
and
went
I've
and
seen,
got-
they're hitting the toilet paper so hard. I mean, I bought a case just because there was some there, and I don't want to be the idiot that needs to wipe my ass, and all of a sudden there's none on the shelves. But I'm not buying cases, and I didn't buy multiple. I bought a pack of toilet paper because, I'm getting low, and I bought a pack of paper towels because, I got one paper towel left in my spare.
No, that's totally
I'm not
understandable.
hoarding, but
No,
I
neither are
am.
we.
I did buy some bottled water.
Yeah.
I got some dry goods. I got a couple boxes of pasta, some beans, and some rice, like things that keep forever, so that like if something really bad does happen, like there is at least edible food in the house. Like,
Exactly.
it's
That's kind of our thinking. And
not produce. Or
she just
meat.
went and stocked us up on some tasty business, so we're good to go. Not crazy,
hoarding peanut butter and
Right.
mayonnaise
and like
toilet paper. And
it sounds to me
rubbing alcohol.
like Jesse had the exact opposite experience at Walmart that you did last week, where she said it was packed and it was crazy, but everybody was being super nice.
Well, maybe they got my angry. Maybe they got my angry. They listened to that bullshit at corporate.
Buddy, might I add the responses to last week's episode
Oh, really?
and your heartfelt tirade against Walmart. There was quite the reaction.
There was quite the what?
Quite the reaction. People were like,
Oh.
I didn't know he had it in him.
That I could get that mad?
Yeah. They haven't heard that on the podcast.
Yeah,
And then-
I haven't. I don't get, and I honestly in life I don't get that mad, but like I was fucking mad. Like I haven't been back to Walmart since, by the way.
So we've known each other like 15 or 16 years at this point, right?
Yeah.
I would say the amount of times I've seen you get that mad, I think I could count it on one hand, maybe two.
Yeah.
It is a rare occurrence. And then you know what it ended up reminding me of? I totally forgot about this. Do you remember the time we went to Best Buy to get a new modem and wireless router?
Yes. I
So
don't know what happened.
we go to Best Buy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the options, and I ask someone who works there for some advice. This guy looks like Hoggle from Labyrinth,
Yes.
to paint the mental picture. Oh, no. Looks like Hoggle, right? And he
Yes.
comes up and he's talking over our options. I decided on a couple, and we're just about to leave. And he goes, "Can I ask you something?" And I know what this is. By now, I know the tone of what he's going to ask.
I know where we're going.
And he's like, why are you in the wheelchair? So I explain it to him. And then he goes on this not a tirade, but this rant about his girlfriend's son who is in a wheelchair. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And he goes, and I just look at that boy and I think, and I know you can relate to this, he's never going to know the touch of a woman.
Oh, God.
He said, I know you can relate to this. He's never going to know the touch of a woman. And I had to bounce out. It made you, like, I'm used to hearing crazy shit about that. And that's the sort of funny thing about the experience, is seeing someone like you or Jesse or Goose or someone who's not used to seeing that happen.
Yeah.
Their reaction is always more severe than mine, because they're like, what the fuck did they just say?
Because you're so shocked at the it takes a second to process it, and you're like, maybe I heard it wrong, and then you play it back in your head, you're like, no, he fucking said it. He really fucking said it. Like,
Yeah.
And then some dudes, if you're at the bar, are like, yo, bro, does your dick work? I'm like, that's not fucking appropriate. That's not fucking appropriate.
Oh
I
my
hate
God.
that shit. I fucking
Dude.
hate that shit.
I actually told this story to our buddy Michael Smith. He came into town this weekend.
My buddy Michael.
Yeah, so I got to see him for a little bit, and I was telling him this story about the second time I ever went to visit Jesse's family in Texas.
Yeah.
When we got to Texas, we went out with a friend of hers from high school and her husband, fiance, boyfriend, something, right?
Yeah.
This dude named Aaron. And we go out with this dude. And the night, we go to dinner, we go to a bar afterwards. And when it's time to leave, Jesse's hanging back talking to her friend. And I make a beeline for the car to put up my wheelchair, get ready so we can leave. So I'm standing up by the trunk of my car, putting my wheelchair in. And this dude comes up and he starts looking around all shifty. And he goes, "Hey, can I ask you something?"
Oh, I hate
there
it.
it is.
I hate it when it starts out like that.
There it is. "Can I ask you something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he goes, and he looks to the left and he looks to the right, like looking to see if anybody's around. And he goes, "You can fuck, right?"
Oh, Jesus Christ. Like a champ. You better believe it.
All day, every day. If there's one thing I like more than rolling around in a wheelchair. So, hey, don't do that to people in wheelchairs. There's a little public service announcement. Practice social distancing. Wash your hands. Don't ask dudes in wheelchairs if their dicks work. Anyways, we're a Star Wars podcast, and we're going to talk about Clone Wars and the Rise of Kylo Ren #4 this week. That's pretty much our only two topics of discussion. And then we're going to hear from you guys. Might be a little bit of a shorter one this week. Got to get busy living or get busy dying. I don't know, man. But anyways, you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Blue Harvest Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Blue Harvest Pod. You can email us at blueharvestpodcast@gmail.com. That's where you send any questions, comments, or voice messages that you may have. Also, we have a YouTube channel now, so check that out. Just search for Blue Harvest, a Star Wars podcast on YouTube, or look at the show notes for this episode. There'll be a link in there. And if you enjoy our goofy little show and would like some bonus podcast content, well, boy, do we have something for you. And that something is a Patreon, where you can sign up and get a variety of rewards and all kinds of bonus shows that we post. Well, what kind of bonus shows? Well, how about where Will shares a recipe with you? A nice, calm, relaxing ASMR style. I don't know that it's ASMR, but I guess it's whatever floats your boat. Cooking with Will. That's that show. What about where it's me by myself, talking user-submitted questions and comments. Oh no, it's Hall solo. What about me and Jesse? Where Jesse pokes me and prods me and ramps up my anxiety about death. That's Jaws. We have Blue Harvest Adventures, where we play the Star Wars role-playing game. That one's a lot of fun. We have Star Wars Year by Podcast, where me and Steele go through the Year by Podcast book and talk about pretty much anything than what's in the book and some of the stuff in the book. Masters of Harvest Kasi, where King Tom and I talk about Star Wars video games. Padula Rasa, where not Jesse, Emily and I go through a show that we enjoy and talk about a good episode and a bad episode. I feel like I'm forgetting Steve versus the prequels. Haven't done one of those in a while. I'm trying to get Steve into the studio.
You should get Steve to do like a toy update, like Steve style. When you do next one, he'd be like, you can get this toy here and you can buy this toy here. Retails for something $99. Like, just that's it. Steve Cobra's favorite segment.
I'll be like, Steve, I got an idea for a new Patreon show for us. I don't want to tell you it. I want to surprise you with the format. So he comes over. He uses, he spends some of his free time coming over the house, sitting at the dining room table. I get it all set up, and I'm like, all right, Steve, you want to talk about newly released Star Wars toys?
And he'll be like, fucking come on, man.
What? Anyway, if any of that sounds like it would be of interest to you, to check out patreon.com/Blue Harvest Podcast. And that's the business.
If I ever can, I'll have the old Goose Payne back on the cooking show. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, man, that got a good response, too.
The opportunity is not often, but it would be cool.
Good old Goose Payne. Goose Payne and his pellet smoker. Those things are cool.
Traeger pellet smoker.
So, how has your week been otherwise besides coronavirus-related happenings?
It's been fine. It's been super rainy. My yard is getting real tall, but it's mostly clover, and I fucking really don't want to mow that bitch, because mowing clover is like, I don't know, it's the toughest thing to mow. Like, it stops the mower quickly, and it turns into like wheatgrass smoothie instead of going right in the bag. It's awful. Clover is awful. Mowing regular grass is not that bad, but so I sprayed some, weed killer, like clover killer, that'll leave the grass on it, and but it's rained so often. I hope it took. I may have to do it again, but
I gotcha.
That's my fight, trying to take care of the yard in between deluges of rain. So,
do you want a quick raccoon update?
Oh, I was hoping that you weren't going to get rabies or, leprosy from your little buddy out there.
Yeah, I don't think they're known to carry leprosy. So today, raccoon update happened, 5 hours ago or something. Not that long ago.
Oh, this is current.
Yeah, it happened.
Breaking news.
Today. I'm sitting on the couch working, and Jessie is about to go outside. This is before she goes on her prepper trip to the store. She's about to go outside with the dogs, right? And she goes up to our side door, and she goes, oh, baby, come here. Come here quick. She's whispering. And I know immediately what that is. So I'm like, take the dogs back to the room, because I don't want them to scare it away. And sure enough, I look out our door, and climbing the little tree by our carport is this baby raccoon.
Oh, my goodness.
And I open the door, and I start talking to him. I'm like, hey, buddy. How's it going, buddy? And he looks right at me. Doesn't seem that bothered. I mean, I'm not super close, but close enough to get a good look at him. I mean, it looks like he's about to go onto our carport. So I have Jesse run into the kitchen and grab some snacks, because there's no way.
What are you trying to feed him this time?
Well, this time we were Parmesan crisps.
Oh, my goodness. He's not going to eat that.
Come on. Raccoons will eat just about anything.
I know you think that. but you need like some cat food or some sliced ham.
Okay. It was the first thing, buddy, I was in a panic.
You were like, food, snacks, now.
I had to try and get him out of that tree and coming towards me as soon as possible. So it was the first thing that popped into my head. I didn't have time to make him a peanut butter sandwich. Raccoons love peanut butter sandwiches, in my research.
You could ET him. You could leave a trail of Reese's Pieces up to the back door.
That's a good one. And then Jesse gets here with the crisps, and by the time I have them in my hand, he's climbed down the tree, up another tree, and over our neighbor's fence, not to be seen. But he's somewhere around here.
He's teasing you.
And the reason he's coming around is because there is cat food outside.
Probably. He's like, you think I'm hungry. You want to pet me. Love me and marry me.
Well, that might be taken a little too far, but I do want to pet him.
You know what I'm saying. You wish you could make that raccoon an indoor raccoon.
No, this is the thing. As much as I think that'd be really cool, I don't think it's optimal with our amount of animals, and I don't think our house is set up for having a pet raccoon. I think
he would be King Trash Monkey of the house. Like, I think everybody would be scared of him, like dogs and cats.
So if I had unlimited income and I could set up a raccoon habitat in my house, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then, yeah, if he had his own little raccoon habitat room that he could chill in at night or when he was sleeping and, you know, these sort of things, that's a different story.
You could blow out that guest room window and make like that guest room kind of like an inside-outside room and then put a glass wall where the door is, and then they could just have, you know, the raccoons could have that room and come and go as they please.
That is not too unsimilar to a guy I watch on YouTube who has a pet raccoon, and his channel's called Tito the Raccoon, and he turned a guest bedroom into a whole raccoon habitat. That's where I got the idea. And
well, it's good to know that you and I think similarly.
Yeah, yeah.
And this guy, Tito.
So, we are now 3 episodes into the Clone Wars, into the Bad Batch arc. 3rd episode, you know, debuted last week, and I thought it was pretty good. Awfully short this time around, like barely 20 minutes.
You know, this is the sense I got watching it. It was short, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for them to end this story arc because I was impressed by the Bad Batch.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see the Bad Batch and Anakin whip ass.
Mm-hmm.
And then this episode, I just got more of the Bad Batch and Anakin whipping ass. Not that it's not great. I need some story, like, I need some more information.
Yeah.
I need some more of what's wrong with Echo and why he was there. And, like, I don't know. It just seemed like this whole episode was them getting away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't really any new bit of information. Like, I would be aggravated if that was a lost episode because it didn't get no new question, no answer, let alone a new question.
Yeah, and as far as I understand, it's a 4-episode arc, right? So the next episode should wrap everything up, I would imagine, and hopefully.
Sounds like I'm complaining about the Bad Batch and Anakin whipping ass, but it was really good.
It was cool, and there's some really cool animation stuff, like that final battle with the alien race teaming up with the clones and Anakin versus the Techno Union. Like, that shit was really cool.
And them sending in, like, you know, the tri-tanks. I'm not sure what they're called, but they got 3 guns on them and the big bulbous head.
Yeah.
Those things wreck ass. Like, they wreck on the battlefield. Like, they are impressively bad.
And I thought the Echo stuff was cool. Man, he's fucked up, though.
He is.
I didn't get a great look at him in the 2nd episode, but
he's missing an arm. He's got robot legs.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering if there's going to be, like, does Echo's story in the next episode have a happy ending, or is it going to be a tragic ending? Are they going to get him back to base and things aren't going so well? Like, I don't know where it goes from here.
I'm afraid he's a Trojan horse.
Oh, I hope not.
I'm afraid he's carrying something bad back to back to their side, or may not even know it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I hope that is the case, that he doesn't know it. That would really bum me out if he does.
I'm afraid he's Trojan horse Manchurian candidate or something. You know what I mean?
Man. But yeah, I mean, the Bad Batch are still cool. I don't know, like, how do you not have a badass 4-pack of Bad Batch figures?
Right. I mean, that seems like that's the reason they were made.
And both scales, like 6-inch and 3 and 3/4. Like, how is that not a thing? Because they all look distinct, and their armors are so cool and have like their own distinct look. I just think they would make for killer figures. I just can't understand why it's not a thing.
When they first got introduced, I was like, some 13-year-old kid drew these up in study hall. Like, they are four different soldiers from the 80s or 90s. Like, one is Rambo, one is Goldberg, one is, I don't know, Steven Seagal, one's Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like, they're just, like, they're the quintessential group of soldiers from what I think about, 90s, 80s, 90s action films.
Dude, speaking of Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? I was looking up Jean-Claude Van Damme stuff on YouTube the other night. It might have been last night, as I do from time to time. And I came across a video from like a game show or something from in the 90s. I couldn't really get a bearing on where it was from. But Jean-Claude Van Damme popped a boner on live TV.
Oh my goodness.
So like, yeah, if you're ever interested, anybody out there, just search for Van Damme gets a boner on YouTube and it'll pop right up. Figuratively.
Is that what you Googled to find it?
I didn't look for that specifically.
Search Jean-Claude Van Damme plus boner.
Hey Google.
Plus erection.
Search Jean-Claude Van Damme boner.
Sorry, I'm not sure how to help.
Oh. The Google Home does not know how to help with my issue.
JCVD boner?
Yeah. Said, sorry, I do not know how to help.
That's the safest thing she could have said.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had some show not too long ago recently. It was like a comedy show on like, poking fun at himself. I don't know.
Oh, Jean-Claude Van Johnson?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. Is it bad?
I watched, so the thing about that show, I don't know if they do it anymore, but like Amazon used to have this thing, I think they called it the pilot program, where on Amazon Prime, they would put up 5 show pilots and sort of let people vote on which ones they wanted to become full series. I think that's how it worked. And that was one of them. I think the Zombieland TV show was going to be one of them. So okay. I never saw the Jean-Claude Van Damme or Van Johnson series, but I did watch the pilot when it came out. And I thought it was okay. But
I thought so too.
Obviously not okay enough to go and watch the full series.
The second 47 Meters Down is on Amazon Prime, and I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet.
What is that?
The first 47 Meters Down, I think it had Mandy Moore, and like they go into the shark cages in the great white shark, and then something happens and the cage sinks all the way to the bottom.
Nope.
And they got to get back up.
Yep. I ain't watching that.
There's a second one about some like, I think they go to like cliff, some cave diving in Mexico, and like, I don't know where the great white, the huge sharks come in, but
yeah,
I can only imagine like that in a confined space. That's increased terror.
I don't fuck with sharks. They scare the hell out of me.
I don't either, but they fascinate me.
I don't know what else to say about Clone Wars, to be honest. Like, I enjoyed the episode, but I don't know that it really gave us anything, at least
That's
for me.
That's exactly my feeling.
Personally, to really dig into,
It's like The Matrix Reloaded. Kick ass, lots of action. But I don't know how much it progressed the story.
Ooh, I don't know that you can make that same statement about Matrix Reloaded, because it progressed the story. I just don't know if it did it in a good way. Yeah, I mean, some action stuff. It's just kind of sort of reinforced things that we had been shown in other episodes. Like
It did tease me right at the end that something is really wrong with Echo. Might not be, or it might be, but it kind of hinted that probably is.
I didn't know how to read that personally.
That's exactly that. I mean, that's what it was so ambiguous. I was like, huh.
Well, yeah, because like Rex is like, we'll get you back home and things will be like, it'll be like the old times. And then Echo's like, yeah.
And then there's this like face, like the camera like zooms in on his face, and he's like, yeah, like old times.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell if it was meant to be like hopeful
or creepy
or ominous. I guess we will find out like tomorrow, basically.
I mean, sadly, just what I know of storytelling, it's got to be something ominous, right? Can't be happy. Can't just be like, we went and got Echo, and he's great and back on the field and an asset now.
Yeah, so if it was the last episode in the arc, if that was the ending of the arc, then I guess that would be more hopeful than ominous. But knowing that there's an episode to go, I think they're all 4 episode arcs.
And he's not in Rebels, is he? Like with old Rex and stuff?
No, that's what is it? Wolf and Gregor? Is that their names? The other 2 clones? I think it's Wolf and Gregor. I think are their names. We kind of talked about it when the season started. The clone arcs are never necessarily my favorites out of them. The clones just don't really do it for me personally. I'm more interested in like the Ahsoka and the Jedi and Sith and stuff side of the Clone Wars.
And this may sound totally stupid, but I am sitting here watching these episodes and I'm like, Anakin, like, I need you to use the Force a little more. Like, you could wipe a bunch of, like, just these droids out, with one strong-ass Force push. When they were coming down the pipe, the droids were coming at them both sides of that pipe, and they had to jump off onto the flying beasts or whatever.
Right.
I was like, you're telling me, Anakin, you couldn't just wipe one side off and wipe the other side off? Like, I don't know, and that's super nitpicky. And I know I just wonder if anybody else is thinking, Anakin, are you feeling all right? Like, you have thrown down with the Force, lately, in the series, like.
Yeah, I think it might just have something to do. You want to give time for everybody else to have their moment to shine.
And I agree with that.
It's kind of like who was it? I think it was Michael Arndt. I think so, or maybe it was JJ and Lawrence Kasdan when they were talking about writing The Force Awakens, how they wanted to have Luke show up early, but as soon as Luke shows up, it takes all the focus off of everybody else. And then you have trouble coming up with something to challenge Luke. And I think that's a similar thing with the Clone Wars, because you do have Anakin and Obi-Wan, and when they show up, there really shouldn't be anything that can give them too much of a problem, give them too much trouble.
And that makes sense. He's basically just being a good manager. I would be super protective of my clones. Like, I got 5 of you on this mission. Like, I really need to make sure everybody makes it out. And he does. Like, he force picks the brute guy up, make sure he gets up.
I like that scene.
I love that scene. And I'm sitting there like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Use those Force powers. Help your buddies out. And but he's really just being a good manager, like I was saying, just being like, they got this. All I have to do is really watch, and oversee. They're totally competent. They can handle this.
Yeah, and him fighting the big crazy droid or whatever those things. I can't remember what they're called.
I can't either. I'm sure we'll get hounded for it.
But that I definitely will be getting a text or two that's like, those are called spider droids.
Spider balloon head droid.
Yes, the M1 spider balloon head droid. My favorite. Yeah, I can't remember what they call. And then, I'll tell you this: when I do get people telling me what it's called, I won't forget it. But I probably will, but I won't forget it. Rise of Kylo Ren, number 4. What'd you think?
Is this the last one, or is there one more?
This is the end.
Oh man, I thought it was good. I thought it showed. It's so weird because it showed how conflicted Ben Solo was about betraying his principles until he got mad, and then he got mad and he said fuck it all, like, and I guess not really, like, he was, I'm not sure where the idea to kill Ren came from, like if he just thought like this is what he's kind of like this is what I was supposed to do all along, or I'm sure I think Snoke was mentally pushing him in that direction.
Yeah,
and then Ren killed his Jedi buddy, and then that was it. It was full on rage after that.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, like, they were trying to push him the rest of the way over to the dark side, if I had to guess.
Right.
So I really enjoyed the series as a whole. It did, and this could be a situation where maybe my expectations of like, oh, this is what they're going to cover, just weren't met. But like, I do feel like there was a few things that weren't addressed that I kind of thought would be addressed in this. For instance, we never find out who blows up the Jedi Temple. Was that Kylo that did that? Did he just lose
that
control? Because that
frame makes it seem like he called that lightning down, right?
Right, kind of. It could be interpreted. It was
ambiguous.
It's kind of ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
So we never find out if that was him losing control and causing that to happen, because he's so fucked up at the time because of the stuff with thinking Luke's going to kill him and everything.
Or Snoke / Palpatine doing it.
Right.
And making Kylo Ren feel like he did it.
Right.
We don't Lion King action there.
That could absolutely be what it is. We just, as far as I could see from what I read in those 4 issues, I didn't get an answer to that, right?
I didn't either.
The other question I've had ever since The Last Jedi is the half a dozen students that left with Kylo. I think they're just kind of
He said a handful.
Handful, whatever terminology they
Which
use.
has to be 5 or less. I mean, just if we're counting on fingers.
So, now here's my question. Does Luke assume that those 3 Jedi that go chasing after Kylo, does he think they just left with him and doesn't know that, oh, they left with him and didn't make it back? They didn't leave with him like, hey, we're coming with you. Does Luke
and to me, he would have to, right? And like, unless he's already shut himself off from the Force, unless right after that bad shit, he shut himself off from the Force, he would think that they went with him, I guess.
I think that's because clearly I don't think you can assume that he's been under that rubble this whole time. Because when he comes out of that rubble, stuff is still on fire.
Right.
Like the temple and stuff. So
right.
I think the only explanation, if that is the answer, that it's those students that followed Ben and were trying to bring him back. If that's what Luke's talking about in The Last Jedi, then the only way I can see it making sense, like you said, is if he has cut himself off from the Force at this point.
And my other evidence for that is that every other Force user alive in the or strong Force user alive in the galaxy felt Kylo Ren's fall to darkness, but Luke wasn't among them. In those panels, you see Leia feel it.
Right.
You see Rey feel it.
You see Palpatine.
You see Palpatine feel it, and Luke's not in there.
Mm-hmm. I did not expect to see Palpatine pop up in that.
I didn't either.
I mean, I know it was only for like a panel or two, but it was a surprise to be sure.
It reinforces the Snoke puppet Palpatine, thing.
Yeah, and I think it further reinforces, because I've seen some people think like Snoke is Palpatine, meaning like Snoke is just another body that Palpatine has been inhabiting with his spirit, right? And I think this shows that that's not the case, because Snoke's around and then Palpatine's around, and then you have that stuff from the book that sort of talks about how Palpatine survived and stuff. We won't go into it too much because I still don't think that book's been released to the general public yet. But yeah, I think that, I mean, he could still be a puppet of Palpatine, and he even says, I made Snoke, right, in The Rise of Skywalker. I'll say this. I thought the coolest part, and this is partially for selfish reasons, because this has been my theory, not just mine. I can't take full credit for this. This is something I've seen other people talk about. But since 2017, when we saw The Last Jedi and we got a look at Ben's lightsaber, not Kylo's lightsaber, his blue lightsaber that we see in the flashback, and how it looks like the crossguard saber, like the form of it looks like the crossguard saber without the crossguard part. My theory has always been that they were one and the same saber, that he tried to corrupt his kyber crystal and cracked it, and therefore created the crossguard saber. He had to modify his old saber, and that's exactly what it is.
That's basically exactly what happened.
So that was a nice little bit.
You see him bleeding it and corrupting it, and then there's this big let loose of energy that shakes the whole ship. And then when he puts it in the saber, he's surprised by how unstable the blade is, and then he modifies it to where it's got the crossguard vents. And doing it all shirtless, by the way.
There's also
with no nipples.
That scene where, they hadn't grown in yet. He hasn't hit that stage of maturity. Will, don't judge.
He was an adolescent Ben Swallow.
There's also that panel where his eyes do the Sith thing, the Sith eyes.
Yeah, when he's corrupting it, when he's bleeding the crystal, that was cool. Yeah, that was awesome.
I thought that was a nice touch.
Absolutely.
I also really like the scene where, as soon as he kills Ren, all the other Knights of Ren immediately bow to him.
Right.
That was pretty tight.
Yeah, it was. And for as badass as Ren was, he sure went out pretty quick. I mean, I guess it just goes to show the strength of Ben Solo.
Yes, it goes to show the strength of Ben Solo and also the limited number of pages. You know what I mean? Like, if this was a 5-issue miniseries, you could have had a whole issue of them duking it out with the lightsaber. But they had a lot of story.
Explained his stone skin malady.
They never did they?
They didn't even explain that. He never took his helmet off again. You know, so there's no point for him being Mr. Handsome Silver Fox or whatever he was. Like, you know, I don't.
So as with anything in Star Wars, I imagine it's only a matter of time before we get more Knights of Ren stories in some fashion. You know, probably before and after Kylo becomes the leader. You know, it's a matter of time. I also think with as well as this comic has been received and has been selling, like, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think the first issue is on its 4th printing or something. The 4th issue that came out this week immediately sold out and went into a second printing. So it's clearly very popular and selling very well for them. I have to imagine they're going to do a follow-up of some sort, you know. There's so much story to explore, and it was so popular, I can't imagine that not being something they want to do.
And you could do as many issues as you want on the Knights of Ren and what they do, you know, before The Force Awakens starts.
Yeah. I mean,
with Kylo as the lead.
Exactly. You have plenty of time to sort of examine the Kylo and Knights of Ren stuff between the end of Rise of Kylo. Like, show us like the whole process behind either crafting or whatever his mask, the whole thing behind Kylo's mask, and like finding Vader's helmet. That's another thing they could get into. There's plenty of stuff for them to explore.
What's interesting is that really the Knights of Ren's purpose is only really to push. You know, I just thought it was more, but it's really just to make that final push of Kylo over to the dark side, and then he's got, you know, a personal bruiser squad, basically.
Yeah, that he doesn't really hang out with for 2 movies.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, more information on those guys, and I have to imagine that as clued in as Charles Soule was with the Rise of Kylo stuff, I'll also have to guess that there's some of that he was kept in the dark about. Like, obviously, the movie was far enough in production and things that they clued him in about the Emperor Palpatine thing, but who knows when that was added to the book and all that. Like, that could have been after the movie came out for all we know. But what I'm saying is, now that episode 9 is nice and wrapped up and the trilogy is over, I think that'll open up plenty of opportunity for people to explore stories with Kylo and the Knights of Ren without restriction.
Yeah.
And without having to worry about butting up against the movies or anything. So I hope they do it eventually. I would love to hear more about each individual member. I'd love to know more about Ren, the original leader of the Knights of Ren. I'd love to know more about what goes on after this series. So
Ty, the Jedi that got his neck snapped by Ren.
Oh, brutal.
He was succeeding. He was succeeding that persuasion check. And Ren snapping his neck obviously
Put an
ended
end to
that.
And
But then it was so cold-blooded how Kylo killed the other Jedi girl.
Yeah.
I mean, she was unarmed, like he took her saber and then just stabbed her through the chest. Like, that's not even death by combat, yo.
Well, and what I thought was interesting, it's Ty, right? He mentions that he and Kylo have some sort of connection.
Special connection, yep.
And I don't know what that's all about. Like, they kind of just threw that in. And then it makes me wonder, like, is that just because they grew up sort of training together under Luke? Or what? I don't really know. But it was an interesting line that they threw in there. And then,
I mean, he's so cold-blooded. He's like, you're not a Jedi. You never have what it takes. Why do you want to live? Like, bro, that's awful. And he did it with the red saber, which I guess is symbolic.
Yeah.
But then it just goes to show his avarice and his pride that he had a red crystal, right? He had a red lightsaber in his possession that he could have just plopped in his, his saber, but his avarice made him want to bleed his own crystal, right? And
I didn't even think about that. He's got Ren's saber. But maybe it's also a thing where the ritual itself is more important. Like kind of how, like, when
how choosing your crystal is like a growing lesson,
right? Corrupting or bleeding your crystal or whatever they call it. Maybe that is the Sith equivalent of, like, taking the final step.
One of the have-tos to be a Sith.
So, I guess looking at it but I didn't even think about that. That's a good call. Overall, I really enjoyed the series. I could have read, like, that could have been a monthly title for me, like an ongoing title, and I'd have been all about it.
You could have doubled the number of comics, 10 comic run. I would have been happy with that.
I also read, I didn't have you read it this week because I think in the grand scheme of things, the rise of Kylo Ren is more important. Once this new series gets a few issues in, we'll probably talk about it. But I read the first issue of Star Wars Bounty Hunters. That also came out this week.
I saw that in the...
Yeah. So check that out when you have a chance. And like I said, we'll let it get... Because it seems like a bit of a slow burn. I really enjoyed it, but it seems like it's setting up sort of its first story arc. I think that's an ongoing title, not a mini-series. And you know me, I'm all about the Bounty Hunters, and it's got a fair bit of Bosk and a fair bit of Boba Fett, so it's right up my alley. I'm hoping there's been, as far as I know, no word about it, but I'm hoping the Mando shows up at some point.
In
Star Wars Bounty Hunters.
Yeah. Oh, Bounty Hunters.
Old Din Djarin. I'm going to have a hard time getting used to that.
Just called a tri-droid, by the way.
A tri-droid.
Boom. Octoptara Magna tri-droid.
Nice. That's way cooler sounding than Balloon Head Spider Droid.
It's hard to pronounce.
Do you want to jump into some voicemails and some emails?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do that.
Here's some crap about how mad I was last week.
I bet you not. We actually only have 2 voicemails and an email this week, so we'll be getting through this pretty quick. Let's see.
I never do a dude fuck that guy, and so when it bottles up towards one specific person, it's like the Hulk.
It bubbled right up. Well, let's hear a little ditty from our buddy Steve, and then we'll hop into these voicemails and emails.
Solo a lot recently. You know, we had the Rise of Kylo Ren comic book finish this week, and for what it was, I thought it was a good, well-told story, but then at the same time, there was a lot more I wanted out of it, so I hope we get a sequel or something, because I want more of that, how he got hooked up with Snoke, and everything that happened after what we saw. So there's more to that story I want, but like I said, it got me thinking a lot more about the Ben and Kylo character. And yeah, because it's Star Wars, I think the redemption of Ben Solo was always part of the plan. And people like to compare it to Anakin. When someone has an issue with the fact that Kylo or Ben is redeemed, people compare it to Anakin. Oh, Anakin did all this, but you were fine with him being redeemed. Why don't you let Kylo be redeemed? And I don't know that's an exact comparison. I'm fine with Kylo or Ben Solo being redeemed if that's what he wants. But at the same time, I think he and Anakin come off as two different types of characters. Because, yes, Anakin goes to the dark side. He does all these horrible, murderous, evil things. But at the same time, we see him as a hero. We see him as a good guy. He's flawed. He has problems. We know why he's driven to the dark side. But Kylo, we're only introduced to him as Kylo, and we see that he has struggles with the light, which is a very interesting character point, or aspect of his character, I should say. But at the same time, we never see him as heroic. We're only told that, he should be good because he has the legacy of the Skywalkers. He's the daughter of Han, or he's the son of Han and Leia. But we never really see him as good. And even in the Rise of Kylo Ren series, the Knights of Ren had him pegged. He never saw action. The one time when Luke faced off against the Knights of Ren, Ben was out there keeping Lor Santeca safe. And, it's just, I feel like, and I don't know how you would have done this, because the 3 episodes we got was a very condensed story. It didn't really feel like it had room for much more, but I think a lot of people would feel differently about Ben Solo in a more positive way if we saw something heroic out of him. And basically, I want to see what you guys think about that. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for the great podcast. I will talk with you later.
Hey, yo. Thanks, King Tom. So I do think that's an interesting observation. And I think that is one thing that would be cool to see now that it's open to getting stories set before The Force Awakens or before The Rise of Kylo Ren is...
There's kind of a hint at it in The Rise of Kylo Ren where he says, the dark and the light both claim me at birth. I never got to be my only person, or I don't believe I'm special. Other people believe I'm special.
But it would be cool to see some heroic Ben Solo adventure stories alongside Luke. When he's a little older than that flashback with the Knights of Ren in the comic. And the other thing is it's such an interesting thing about the Anakin Skywalker side of it, because when you really think about it, for years, like damn near 20 years, we assumed that about Anakin before he became Darth Vader, but the only stories we had about Anakin were him as Darth Vader. We had A New Hope, Empire, Jedi, and, anything that tied in with that, but we never had it wasn't until the prequels came around and the Clone Wars.
From was it Sebastian Shaw showing up in the Jedi robes next to Obi-Wan at the end, and you have Obi-Wan in A New Hope saying, he was a good friend, an amazing pilot.
That's what I'm saying. We could.
All we really know is that he was a good guy at some point. He was Obi-Wan's best friend.
We could infer that from, bits of dialogue and things like that, but we had no strong examples.
Yeah, nothing to go on.
So, but, you know, in the same regard, I don't think, at least anytime soon, we're going to be getting the prequels to the sequel movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Honestly, don't know that they would be interesting. You know, watching Luke just kind of drag Kylo around and imparting wisdom here and there. You know, that's him not seeing any action. Like, that's probably boring.
well, yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from, but that's where you go and you make the action. You know, you make it an adventure exploration story.
Without combat.
Or you could put combat in there even. You know, like they could run into some trouble and get into combat. It doesn't necessarily have to be like lightsaber on lightsaber combat, but there's plenty. Like, think about Luke in Battlefront 2, right? Like, that's a interesting little chunk of a Luke Skywalker adventure story. He's on this planet that's occupied by the Imperial Remnant, and he's looking for
Vault.
that Emperor's vault, right? So you could do stories like that, but have Luke and Kylo together. I think that's totally doable. I just don't know, like, yeah, I don't know really how it would go or where it would, in my mind, you don't have too long of a period before the first issue of The Rise of Kylo Ren, or when Kylo turns and, you know, like the Luke thing happens and then he runs off. Like, because the problem you run into if you do it earlier, when Kylo's a younger boy, like in the issue that was a flashback with the Knights of Ren, like, then you've got a kid palling around. And not that he can't be involved in adventures, but, like, you know.
It's hard to get him in space bars. And
it's a whole
tell
hassle.
him don't take some death sticks. And,
But yeah,
hey, kid, watch the car and get us a space cheesesteak.
that little glimpse in The Rise of Skywalker that you get of Ben Solo when he shows up to help Rey,
Yeah.
like that alone makes me want some heroic pre-Kylo Ben Solo stories. I think that could be really cool. And I do think, to Tom's point, it would sort of reinforce the redemption arc and also sort of like give you more of a reason to root for the guy.
Another one of the things that Anakin was an established Jedi for, 15, 20 years before he fell, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know that Kylo was really ever a Jedi. He was kind of like Padawan that got angsty and rebellious and became a Sith.
I think you would probably consider him a Jedi at that point because he was Luke's
I don't know
first
that he had
apprentice.
faced any trials, though, right? Like,
Well, yeah, but just because we don't know that doesn't mean you can't make that part of his story, you know?
I mean, yeah.
Like I think there is plenty of room to make those stories fit in somewhere. I just don't know that well, for one, you don't have something like the backdrop of the Clone Wars. Like
Yeah.
Anakin has that benefit.
Right.
You know? But I don't think just because there's not some huge intergalactic war going on that you can't have Ben Solo up to some heroic shit in between episode 6 and 7. You probably have a more condensed timeline to do that. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm terrible at this. Like,
He's super angsty, man. I don't know. It would make him less angsty,
yeah,
which
but,
I would enjoy, but I don't know is good for the character.
But you could do the same thing you do for Anakin, though. You know what I mean? Like, where you show his progression and
Towards
being
the
tempted
fall.
towards the dark. Yeah, towards his fall. You know, like, you know how last week you were saying that the Clone Wars really gives you more of an appreciation for Anakin's fall in the prequel trilogy?
Right, precisely.
You could do that exact same thing with Kylo.
Yeah.
And I was sitting here trying to think. I think he's early to mid 20s ish when the shit goes down with Luke, and he heads off and joins the Knights of Ren. Right. Mm-hmm. So there's some years you can play around with there for sure. Yeah, I think it's a possibility. I just really want more stories in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, so I think that's part of the main thing that sounds appealing to me. All right.
I can understand why. Seems like it was a time of relative peace for the galaxy.
Yeah.
Until Leia had to start a rebellion.
All right. Next up, we got one from our buddy Jim.
Hey, Hawes and Will. I wanted to let you guys know that I've actually made some Star Wars buddies at my job. There's 63 electricians, and I've come across some that are actually into it. So it's been pretty sweet. I've been able to talk some shit with them, and we got off early on a Friday, and a few of us went to a pool hall, and some intense guy said, "Can't use the light stick, always got to use the heavy. The light stick's garbage, always." And I said, he walked away, and I said to my friend, "Only a Sith speaks in absolutes." And, had a chuckle out of it, but it's great to be able to chat with people that actually know what the hell's going on. But, so I've heard some bad theories, though, from some of these dudes. The guy that I talk, he's into The Mandalorian, and he's remembering The Empire Strikes Back, and he said, Yoda said, there is another. That's Baby Yoda. And I'm like, no, man. Pretty sure they were talking about Leia. It was 40 years ago. But anyway, and the mirror chamber in The Last Jedi, when Rey thinks she sees her parents, it's actually Han and Chewbacca, according to this guy's theory. But it's great. I was wondering if you guys have, what's the worst theories that you've heard over this whole sequel saga, is my question. All right, guys. Night Green.
Oh, man. That damn "no, there is another" line. Boy, does that get trotted out like a show pony. Anytime new Force users in that specific era.
He says specifically, when he's dying, he says Skywalker.
Right. In Return of the Jedi, you're 100% correct. He brings it back up. He says, Luke, there is another Skywalker.
Yeah,
right?
It.
And yes, he is talking about Leia. But man, when Rebels started, people were like, well, maybe he's talking about Ezra. No, he's not talking about Ezra. He's talking about Leia.
Is it the line from Empire Strikes Back where he's pulling away and it's Obi-Wan and Yoda looking at him, and Obi-Wan says, "There goes our last hope," and Obi-Wan says, "No, there is another."
Yeah, Yoda says it. That's the line.
Yeah, I was wondering. Yoda says it.
Yeah, man. I had not heard it said that it was Baby Yoda. No, it's not Baby Yoda. Man, that's a silly theory. That is a silly one. I'm trying to think of the worst theory I've heard in the to
me, the worst theory was that Snoke was Jar Jar Binks.
Oh.
Or that the big bad, I guess, would be
Jar Jar.
Jar.
The Darth Binks theory, terrible.
Darth Binks, yeah, was Darth Plagueis or something like that. Was awful.
Now I totally enjoy people enjoying it for like the meme of it or just joking around.
Right. It's funny,
but when people took that shit seriously, I was like, come on, guys, come on. I don't know. So I do have one that immediately comes to mind, but I'm not going to say it. It's going to get me. It was a theory about who Snoke really was. And this was like post The Force Awakens. And it was a character that was only like in books and stuff. Not the one that everybody initially thought from the after. It was bad. I'm not going to go any further, but it was cringy bad. I'm trying to think. Bad theories. The Darth Binks one was something
That's the
else.
one that's sticking with me. I'm trying to think of another one, and I can't come up with another one that's real bad. but I should be able to.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of Snoke as Darth Plagueis talk.
Yeah.
Before The Force Awakens came out, that was pretty bad.
I mean, that was bad, but I can see where they were coming from. You know what I mean?
You can kind of see the origin of that one, at least.
They were trying to bring up what they know was another possible big bad from the past.
Right. I'll tell you one I was never a fan of. This is not a personal shot at anybody, so if this was your theory, this is not a shot at you, but I've just always thought this was a bad theory, that Rey was going to be either Han or Leia's daughter with someone else. So it was going to come out that
Han had cheated on Leia.
Or vice
had a love
versa.
child. Yeah.
And like,
I didn't like that.
There's just no way that just makes either of them, like whoever it would have ended up being, look bad. Like it makes the character look bad. And then it makes it look like a shitty parent because they're like, well, I had a kid with someone that wasn't my husband or wife. And so I was like, well, we'll sweep this problem under the rug.
Once I realized that she was left on that planet at such a young age, like she can't be a hero's kid, you know, because then they're the worst dad ever.
Yeah.
And the thought that she was going to be a Kenobi somewhere, I would have been cool with it, but like you said, it wouldn't make me think any less of Obi-Wan, but you're asking yourself like, well, who did Obi-Wan, get busy with?
Well, see that one, once again, for your more like read up or engaged Star Wars fan, I can kind of see the origin of that one, simply because they establish in the Clone Wars that Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine had a thing, right?
Had feelings, yeah.
So you could, but then once again, you work into this weird territory of like, okay, so Obi-Wan and Duchess Satine had a kid, and then that kid was like given away or disappeared and is never brought up again, and that kid then goes on to have Rey, or so on and so forth, right? Like,
right.
It just, like, it seems like it would be too messy. Like, honestly, though, making her a Palpatine isn't much cleaner, but it's a little easier.
It excuses the bad dad.
Exactly.
In the problem.
Right. It makes a little more sense. Like, well, see, the way it makes sense is because Rey didn't necessarily have bad parents. They were trying to protect her. But if that was Luke or Han or Leia or whoever,
it wouldn't have been excusable.
Right, because they would just be like, wait, yeah, that's right. We had a kid that... You came from a desert planet? Weird. I left a kid there to be protected one time. Huh. I'll be damned. Maybe you guys met sometime.
And it does make me... That look that Han gives her in The Force Awakens when she's like, I've never seen so much green in my life. Like, I thought that was going to mean something, but it's just kind of... Han's just like, man, that's really sad.
Yeah.
Like, you're a really sad chick.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think that is the... Now, was that the original intention? I don't know. But I think at the end of the day, that's how it's to be interpreted now. Is that Han is like, man, that sucks. You've had it rough. Because, shortly after that, he offers her the job and stuff. I really like that scene. I wouldn't be nice to you. It doesn't pay much. I really like that scene.
That's one of the what if universes that I would love. What if Rey had, palled around with Han Solo and Chewbacca? You kidding me? That would have been incredible.
That would have been rad. All right, you want to go on to our one email for the evening, and then we'll call it a day?
Yeah, let's do it.
This is from this is creatively named Rotten Pork Chop. Gentlemen, greetings from Seattle. I've been listening to the Blue Harvest podcast for just a little over a year and decided that a monetary thank you is long overdue. Thrilled to be Patreon number 4 at level 3 with a damn ass shirt coming my way. Want to bounce a Mandalorian / The Rise of Skywalker connection off you two. I have a theory that the client and Moff Gideon were working for the remnants of the Empire still loyal to Palpatine and his Sith acolytes to collect DNA / midichlorians / force juice from highly force sensitive beings like Baby Yoda to keep Darth Sidious quote unquote alive all those years, and to work on the creation of a clone body that could reliably hold his dark soul. What do you think? Thanks for putting out a genuine and fun Star Wars podcast. Cheers, a rotten pork chop. I'm not opposed to this idea. I'll be honest. Yeah. And this is what makes me wonder, because during sort of the promotion of season 1 of Mandalorian, or the lead up to season 1, there was an interview with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau where they said something to the effect of, you'll see the seeds of the creation of the First Order in The Mandalorian. And I mean, I guess you could kind of see something like that, because you do have someone like Moff Gideon out there still holding, you know, at least a pretty sizable amount of power. He's got equipment and stormtroopers, and they're all shiny and look nice. They're not all beat up and shit. But there is some sort of answer to why they want that Baby Yoda so bad. And the Palpatine thing, like, if it is related to Palpatine, like, I could see that making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I have no idea one way or the other if they're going to go that way. But once you introduce the Force in this way, in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, it is wide open to connect to either side, right? Mm-hmm. To the dark side or the light side. Now, hopefully they don't get a hold of the little bastard and do experiments on him and shit and use him for those purposes. That'd be a bummer.
Right. It would.
But I could see it going that way. It is, referring to Jim's voicemail, I don't think that's a terrible theory.
No.
The question just becomes, like, how much of that will they get into in the next season, or however many there are?
If I have to answer that, probably as little as they can.
Yeah. It really, I think, depends on how open everything is now that the sequel trilogy is done. My personal hope would be that it's wide open. You know, explore whatever you want, as long as it doesn't really step on anything or override anything. But, you know, now that we don't have to worry about the sequel trilogy, it's done, then take those opportunities. I just don't know. Would people... The basis of the theory aside, would people be bummed or disappointed that it ended up connecting with the larger story as a whole, because they want this to be sort of a separate thing, you know, separated completely from the saga? Or would they like that type of connection? I don't really know.
Well, I mean, you've established that Palpatine's been pulling strings even since, you know, the second he got obliterated in the second Death Star. So he's saying, like, he doesn't know what Moff Gideon's up to. It's probably, I mean, he probably knows exactly what he's up to.
That's a good point. Yeah, and I guess it would. Just trying to think. I guess it would make sense for that sort of part of the Empire to be connected with Palpatine and the Sith acolytes and stuff, because I think the rest of the Empire remnant, or most of it, maybe I'm wrong, but at this point have already gone out into the unknown regions, like after the treaty or whatever is signed, after the Battle of Jakku. Like, some of them go off into the unknown regions and start building up the First Order.
Okay.
So I think most of them are out there. So if there is like this legion or this, you know, contingent of the Empire that's still operating in the Outer Rim, but still within like the the major part, the known galaxy, I guess it could make sense that they're more closely associated with the secret spooky doings of Palpatine.
An Allegiant General Pride.
Yep.
He's been in on it from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Because he tells Palpatine, like, oh, I'm going to serve you like I did in the old war. So he was part of the Empire back in the day.
Yeah.
Something to think about. I don't hate it. I don't hate the idea. Because they want him for something. And I think that is a matter of time before we have that question answered. And I'm not opposed, personally, to having that answer be tied into the sequel trilogy or the saga as a whole.
I mean, it can only be a couple things. They either want to, like, replicate his ability for their evil purposes, or they want to groom him as an evil being instead of a good one, or they just want to kill him. You know, like, I figure those are your only options. Right.
But okay. So, replicate his ability or use him for some sort of scientific shenanigans. To me, that probably has the strongest chance of likelihood because they don't want him dead. They want him alive. The client does say like, you know, bounty hunting is a complicated profession, so we're willing to accept the bounty dead, but they definitely seem to prefer to want him in alive, right?
I'm just being pragmatic.
So, and then you said, so I don't think it's that they just want him dead. And it definitely seems like they want to do scientific experiment type shit on him. Because when the Mando breaks into that bunker to steal Baby Yoda back, like, they're taking blood tests and scanning him and shit.
Yep.
I don't know. I guess we'll find out eventually.
And I thought that doctor was going to have more to do in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Conflicted Doctor, Nurse Taker, or whatever.
I wouldn't be surprised if that character shows back up sometime later in the series.
For some reason, did he not get shot in the whole exfiltration?
No, because he's like, he pleads with Mando, saying like,
you're right. Like, I helped him.
I kept him from
alive.
I kept him from getting hurt and stuff like that. I don't want to hurt him. And so the Mando leaves and doesn't kill him. Now,
right.
Does Werner Herzog take care of his ass after it all goes down? And he's like, oh, you let this happen and then have them killed? Well, now that could be. And then you also got to keep in mind something that we don't bring up often is that Dr. Pershing, I believe is the character's name, has a Kaminoan cloner emblem on his jacket.
Huh. Interesting.
That's deliberate, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Again, I said this last week, but I just cannot believe the Kaminoans were in it from the beginning. Like, in league with Tyrannus.
Yeah, and in that episode where you find that out, they're fucking menacing.
They are.
Those long
and they act
bastards.
like they're neutral or something. But if they're making saber darts, they're not neutral. They're making weapons.
Yep. A Kaminoan saber dart. It depends on how polite you are and how big your pocketbook is.
Dex.
Dex.
May he age well into the special editions.
Well, I think that does it for us this week, buddy. I'm going to take a quick look.
That was a good one.
Yeah. I'm going to take a quick look and see if we got any emails in the last little bit. Doesn't look like it. So if you guys enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps us. Oh, you know what I forgot to do the last 2 weeks? And I almost forgot it this week. Reading out our new reviews. trying to get us to 200 reviews. We're at 185 now, so we're moving on up. The last two that we got, one from Dum Dum Dugan. He says, as refreshing as cold sweet tea on a hot summer's day. Your best source for all things Star Wars and some things not Star Wars. And then we have from Phil from Phillipsburg. I only listen to podcasts when I'm in the car. I find myself coming up with excuses to drive around just so I can listen to Hawes and Will. They are the best. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's kind.
You want to be like Dum Dum Dugan, Marvel royalty, and Phil from Phillipsburg? Why don't you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? It really helps us out. And if you like our theme song, be sure to check out the band who was kind enough to provide the music. They're Stoned Cobra, and you can find them on iTunes, Spotify, and at stonedcobra.bandcamp.com. And we'll see you guys next week, where we'll at least be talking about Clone Wars and whatever else happens. And until then, this has been Blue Harvest, and I'm Hawes Burkhart.
And I'm Will Wynn.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with all of you.
May the Force be with us.